Check out this anti-fatigue mat my wife picked up the other day. We got it in the kitchen next to the sink. I think it's pretty cool. So I just got done putting together this compost sifter here. Pretty self-explanatory how I put it together. There's just some 2x4s screwed together with some wood screws. Then I used some 1x2 trim pieces to hold this mesh in. This is a 1/4-inch hardware cloth. I'm about to harvest out the worm castings out of my bathtub worm bin and reset it with some fresh bedding. So I thought now would be a good opportunity to put together a new sifter. We've got overcast skies today, all day, and yesterday as well. And it still has been really hot and muggy, but the plants are really liking the break from that pounding sun. So you can see this area over here is getting really dense. Wanted to share with you guys, this is a great way to eliminate weeds from popping up, is to densely plant your plantings. And you could really fill in between with plants like the squash, sweet potato greens, and that sort of thing. But I'm really liking how this bed here has turned out. Really abundant. Gave everything a really good watering today. And I did that using these sprinklers that I'd put together recently. This is a spinner sprinkler head, also known as a rainforest sprinkler. And I put this together with some 1/2-inch PVC. And there's a hose connector there at the bottom. When you turn them on, they spray out in about a 30-foot radius, so it covers a really large area. So I only need a few of these in the garden to get the whole garden completely soaked. And it really does a good job mimicking natural rainfall, almost like a rainforest. It puts out a nice mist as well. Could that be May? Yeah? Did you see I pulled out the camera? Alright, we got you in the video. Hello, Tweez. Looks like Tweezy's doing some bug patrol for me today. Good job, Tweezy. So I'll be taking advantage of today's overcast weather and planting out some new plants out in the garden. Here I've got some Scotch Irish moss. I've always envisioned having some moss growing around these rocks over in this area. It does like part shade. And right now this area does get part shade because of this towering cardoon. But as you can see, this guy's pretty much dead now. So I'm going to be removing the cardoon. And I'll be replacing that with something else. But I'm going to be planting out that moss all throughout here. And it has a spreading habit. And hopefully it'll crawl somewhat up onto the rocks. I'm going to also be planting out a couple evergreen ornamentals. Here I've got a New Zealand tree fern. These guys can get pretty tall, like 12 feet by 10 feet wide. And this particular variety is cold hardy down to 20 degrees Fahrenheit, so should do well in my area. I'm in zone 9B. In cooler climates, you can put this right in full sun. But where I'm located, it's more inland and the sun is pretty potent. It would be pretty harsh on this, so I'm going to be looking for a mostly shaded area, probably under one of the taller trees I have growing back here. And this oleander here, and this grows everywhere around here. It does very well, drought tolerant, puts off these beautiful flowers, good for beneficial insects. And this plant can make an exceptional privacy hedge. You can even prune it into a tree. So I'll be using this plant in the design back here just to add a little bit more privacy, give it a more natural look. And this plant is toxic, so just keep that in mind if you're thinking about growing one for yourself. So as long as I'm on the topic of non-edibles and how I'm going to work them into my food forest design back here, I think I'll tell you about some of the future plans. Right now, filling in the gaps back here, I still got several different annual vegetable crops, and this is a great way to occupy space while you're continually developing your food forest. Here I've got a nice little plot of eggplants. Got several of these established back here. Amazing food crop. And of course we got pepper plants, tomatoes, squash like zucchini. Here's a volunteer Swiss chard that popped up. And of course we got plants like kale and such growing back here as well. But moving forward, the plan is to occupy these spots where annuals are growing and fill them in with ornamental plants. So things like flowers, which are going to add beauty and color to the garden, as well as attract in beneficial insects, as well as a bunch of different perennial herbs. Right here is the Tulsi basil. This is an annual herb, but I want to plant out more perennial herbs such as this oregano here, which does very well as a ground cover and of course is great for culinary purposes. And eventually this whole back end of the food forest will be full of just perennials. All the annuals will then get moved into this section, which is closest to the house. And there will be some perennials mixed in here as well. And we'll also be utilizing these 2 concrete raised beds that I had made. These are the hidden hugelkultur beds. This year we just got a few random things that have popped up. There's actually some turmeric growing right there amongst some sweet potato greens. Then we got some spaghetti squash. And you can see they're growing right on top of this biochar. I actually turned this into a little mini fire pit, produced a bunch of biochar for the garden, and a bunch of it still remains in these beds. I'm going to let this bed continue to settle a bit, and I might plant it out for this fall. If not, I'm just going to let it overwinter and plant it out in the spring. But these will most likely become annual garden beds as well. Well, that's it for now, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, this is Dan from plantabundance.com. Take care and have a great weekend. I'll be talking to you again soon.